You're listening to the Freedom Talk Radio Network on Blog Talk Radio. Stay informed about the latest Freedom Talk Radio Network news at freedomtalkradio.co.uk. That's freedomtalkradio.co.uk. Welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio with your host, K. William Spencer, and friends. This program is here to help all of us understand our journey in and through life by means of straightforward conversations, discussions, guest interviews, and listener emails. For more information, visit our site at ytyrradio.tk. Now, here's your host. Hi, and welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. I am K. William Spencer, as always, your host. Today, my guest is Kim Parrish. She's a longtime friend, and let me just tell you a little bit about her, and it's going to be a very little bit, but you're going to find out the introduction to her is very underplayed. We're going to talk about the spiritual side of Kim Parrish. Kim is a homemaker. She is an internet comedian on Blog Talk Radio, and just in life in general, because this is how we met with each other, not on Blog Talk, but anyway. And she's an unofficial music DJ. I say unofficial is because when we met, she was just playing a lot of music, and I'm just sitting back grooving to it, and I started talking to her, and she just turns out to be one heck of a great person, a great friend that I've known for years now, and she's just a lot of fun. So she has First of all, let's just welcome you to the show. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you, William. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about your internet comedian on Blog Talk. I know you go by, just introduce yourself as who you are on the show. I know you do two personalities, which is just crazy.
Should I have Perry introduce himself?
Okay.
All right. Hello. William, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
PerryNoid here. How you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing great.
That's good. So, Perry, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm Chakra Kahn's best friend and tormentor.
Tormentor?
Yeah, I like to torment her. I like to try to get her in trouble. Not the kind that we're breaking laws or anything, but, just the kind where we have some fun and stir up a little mischief.
I hear you. Perry, real quick, so we can get back to Chakra Kahn here. Tell us, what is the website on Blog Talk Radio?
Well, it's blogtalkradio.com, Chakra Kahn. And there's no spaces in that name. CHAKRAKAHN.
Alrighty. Well, Perry, it was very nice meeting you. And
Thank
we'll
you.
be talking with you a little bit later, okay?
All right. It was nice meeting you and nice talking to you, too.
Yeah.
Take care.
You do that so well. So, the other side of Kim is that she does go by the name of Chakra Kahn. Not Chaka Khan, for those who know the difference. Chakra Kahn. So, tell us a little bit more about how you got into doing this on the radio and all those good things.
Well, I've always doing crazy voices and stuff. I'll run around my house cleaning and pick something up and say something to myself in another crazy voice. Kind of like talking to myself in a different personality.
Yeah. People don't think that makes them crazy because I do the same thing, which maybe makes us crazy. I don't know. But it's a lot of fun doing that, huh?
Makes life fun.
Well, yeah, it does, especially when there's nobody else around, so you entertain yourself. That's the way I look at it, anyway. I should have wrote this down. Well, anyway, let's move on to this next question here. Tell us about the Chakra Kahn name.
Okay, I was studying about the chakras one night, reading a bunch of stuff on the internet, and I was listening to music at the same time as usual. I just happened to be playing some of Chakra Kahn's music. And my son, being the ever-loving joker that he is. You know, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But he came in and he started calling me Chakra Kahn. So that's pretty good name. I was going by the screen name of Musical Mosley at the time because I was doing a lot of DJing in rooms and stuff. You know, and it was just time for a change, you know, and that sounded like a pretty good screen name. So Chakra Kahn was born.
Yeah, because I think it was actually, I met you probably around that transition time of going from Musical Mosley to Chakra Kahn.
Yeah.
And I never bothered to ask what, you know, if it was any difference. I said, well, okay, if there's a Chakra Kahn, I know that's not her real name either, but I figured, okay, fine, who knows? I'd just leave it alone. Never bothered to ask. So, yeah, back in those days, we were back on Pal Talk back in those days. And Chakra Kahn used to get up here and just play some nice music, and it was just, she played it, and we had a lot of fun. We actually got into knowing each other because I was doing more of the spiritual stuff back then as well, which kind of, between the music and our between our music and the spiritual side of things, we developed a great friendship in that. And I'm not on Pal Talk anymore, so don't go looking for me there. Are you still there?
Yeah, I am, and we miss you over there.
Does anybody actually know me over there still?
I'm sure there's some. You know, a lot of the older people are starting to come back around again.
Huh. Well, yeah, Facebook is kind of losing its edge there, but could be the reason why. But anyhow, tell us a little bit more about your spiritual side of life.
Well, ever since I was little, my mom would take us to church every Sunday, and anytime the doors were open, we were always there. And, once I got a little bit older and out on my own and everything else, I'd work and do the dating thing and have marriages and stuff like that. But I always had a heart towards learning about my Creator, or getting closer to Him, or it, or whatever that may be, and I've just always been on a quest to find myself and it, I guess, that glorious thing out there that created everything. And that's taken me down several different paths, because I've always wondered, if there's one book that everybody is supposed to be going by, how are there so many different religions and so many different denominations of each religion, and so I've studied with some of the different ones to figure out what they believe and what I agree with and what I don't agree with and what I think is possibility, so I've gone to went to Catholic church a couple of times. Pretty quick, that wasn't for me. I've gone to Seventh-day Adventists. I studied with some Jehovah's Witnesses, with some Mormons, I've pretty much run the gamut. I went to Messianic Jewish synagogue for a while. So over on Pal Talk, I found a group of Jewish people that was a Messiah Truth class. And I was over there for several years, and more or less became an honorary Jew. So after that, it just kind of like took off, and I've always wondered, if there's something that I'm supposed to be doing that I'm not doing, what's my purpose here? So that's pretty much where I'm at, and probably will be until I die.
There's something that you said. Oh, here we go with signal problems again. There's something you said just a little bit ago, and I know this is probably going to raise a flag for some people out there, so I just want to ask you this, and let you explain it in your own words. I think I know where you're coming from, but I would love for people to hear it coming from your mouth. Is you said you were looking for things that your search was for a relationship with God, that's where I'll put it, or with our Creator. And you were looking for something that brought you closer to a relationship with Creator instead of just seeking dogma that makes sense. So you're looking at it from, as you said, what agreed with you. Can you explain that?
Well, because you hear, different, depending on which preacher you go to, or rabbi, or whatever, whoever your spiritual guide is, you're going to get their version of what they believe. You know, it's not necessarily what's in the book that you're supposed to be following. So, you know, I've always had to go back and double check on stuff for myself, and I find a lot of things that I was told aren't necessarily what is.
Yep, I did the same thing. Matter of fact, I came from one of the religions that you went to check out, that you just named, and I did the same thing. And what I did was I sat down one morning, because I won't get into the whole story, but I'll tell you the end part. I sat down with the Bible one morning with an 8.5 by 14-inch sheet of paper, and I wrote down all the questions that I always had questions about, but never got satisfactory answers. And I went through, at that time it was a Bible with a concordance in the back, and I looked in the back, and I went through every text that was given for that particular question that I had in mind. And I wrote them all down, and I started studying them and put them back into their real context. In other words, if I write you a letter and then I write you another one 6 months later, don't take his thing out of context, and then my brother writes you a letter and it's altogether different, and then you start taking stuff out of context and you're building a story or a belief from it, and one has nothing to do with the other.
Yeah.
So I just put it back in its original context. This was the letter I wrote to you, this is what I said, this is what I meant, not something that you can take from this letter and that letter and put it all together and say, this is what you meant. No, it's not. So I did that. Then I started studying with, because I knew a lot of people that had their doctorate degrees in theology and whatnot. And I never still got the answers. And all I kept getting was, all you need to have is faith, 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 faith. I said, I got faith. I want to understand something here, man. Come on. So, yeah, I did the same thing. I went traveling around and doing all that kind of stuff. And I finally found somebody that of a different religion, and I sat down with them, and they opened up more than one book and explained it. And I'll put it this way, it was the originators of the text in the first place. Okay? And I sat down with them, and I said, okay, let's talk about it. And they explained it all, and I said, now this makes sense. And they'll tell you, we don't know all the answers, but I said, I'm not looking for all the answers. I'm just looking for something that I can actually have a foundation. I'm walking on something that's solid, not something that keeps shifting with somebody's whim.
Right.
You know, putting it loosely. But that's where I just went from there. So I found my answers, and I'm still learning. And it's a very interesting journey. I try to live my life as it's a miracle every day, which makes it very interesting and a lot of fun.
Right.
But anyway, the show's not about me. So, but I think that I just wanted to add that in just to, I would say, is kind of bolstering what you were saying. So, anyway, please continue.
Oh, okay. Put me out there. Yeah, that's pretty much where I was at. You know, I wanted to know if that's supposed to be my father. You know, you always hear God or whoever is your heavenly father. Then shouldn't I be close to this father? Shouldn't I have some kind of relationship with him? You know, and why should I be afraid of him? Mm-hmm. That was my biggest thing. You know, because until I got born again,
yeah,
I skipped merrily through life and was conscious of being good and being bad. But then once I got born again, I was very aware of going to hell and being terrified of that, and that's just not a really good way to live. I was so afraid of doing something wrong that I was afraid of doing anything.
Yes. And now we can't live our lives through fear or out of fear.
No, that just wasn't a good place to be. So there's a metaphysical and spiritual section on Pal Talk. Like I said, I had been hanging out in the Jewish rooms for several years. And, it was time for another little shift and everything else. And I went and started hanging out in the music room. and looked at the doors on the spiritual rooms and go, no, you know, you can't mess with those. You know, that's astrology and stuff like that. You know, that's the stuff that's going to send you to hell. You can't mess with it. You know, so I was afraid for several years to even go into the rooms that, you know, psychics and mediums and other, you know, various aspects of that were hanging out at. You know, and when I finally did, it just opened up a whole new world for me. You know, it like opened up my mind to other possibilities and stuff, and the idea that, you know, you do have a creator, but he's not sitting up there waiting to smack you upside with a hammer or something, or send you to hell because you've done something wrong, you know. And I thought to myself, well, how can I be a better parent than my creator? You know, I'm not going to sit there and torture my child for something that they did. Yeah, they might have to be punished for it and pay the price for what they've done, but you know, some of the stuff that you hear is pretty extreme in religion. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so being more open-minded to that, you know, it just let me know that, yeah, there's more to this than what I've been told. You know, that there's not some great big grand poobah sitting up there waiting to cast everybody in hell and cleanse the earth.
Yeah, I've known quite a few people in my lifetime, personally, that they left religion, period, and became atheist. Mm-hmm. And some of them actually became what I call fundamentalist atheist. Reason why I say fundamentalist atheist is atheism, by a dictionary, just means lack of belief in a superior being. And I call them fundamentalists because they come across, there is no God, you can't prove it to me, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, hey, dude, you're not really an atheist if you're sitting up here and arguing against something. It's just, I don't believe in it, and that's it. Let it go.
Yeah.
But even, who's it, George Carlin, he did a skit, which I just saw recently. I never really saw this one in particular. But, which is a shame, the man died back in 2008, but at any rate. He did this one, and he was an atheist. He grew up as a Catholic. He talks about it freely, and he says, he's talking about God in his own way, and he says, you know, you do this, you do that, you don't do this, and if you don't do this and you don't do that, you're going to hell, and you're going to burn in hell forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And he pauses and looks up with his usual smile, and he says, but he loves you.
I love that one. That was in the movie Zeitgeist.
Okay.
Another thing that kind of like opened my mind up to some of the things that's going on in the world. But yeah, you know, I felt the same way. He's supposed to love you so much, but you know, I'm afraid I'm going to do anything that's going to make him unhappy with me, and that's just no way to live. You know, so when I started going over into the metaphysical rooms and the spiritual section and stuff, you know, I started being more open to different ways of thinking. You know, that maybe he's not sitting up there waiting to cast you into hell. Maybe he's sitting up there waiting to embrace you and show you some things. But you have to have an open mind to it.
Yeah. You
know, and I was always told in church, oh, you don't meditate. Do not meditate. That will open you up to demons. You know, and I was faithful to what I was being taught. You know, I was not going to mess with meditation. You know, I'm still not really on that meditation train because I fall asleep when I try it. But you know, I am on that track.
Yeah, I hear you. But there's one other little thing I just wanted to bring up, and I want to hear what you have to say about this one because we're still on that. And you know, we have also heard this from many different religions, so I'm not going to pick on one, but many of them talking about, oh, I'm so happy in this, I'm happy in that, I'm happy in God, and blah, blah, blah. But there's always that side of fear. Now, how can you actually mix fear and happiness together and make it actually work for you?
I don't think you can. I think you can fake it. You know, that old fake it till you make it theory.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was happy going, you know, worrying about going to hell and being cast out and all this other stuff and not being close to God, but, you know, I was still going along being happy. But I figured there had to be something other than that fear that was sitting on, you know, because that fear was always a heavier weight than the happiness was.
Uh-huh. Indeed. And I still hear a lot of people that are still, I'm afraid to do this, and I can't do that. And yeah, I used to hear the same thing. Don't open up your mind to meditation. And, a lot of people, even when I was in martial arts, do you get into the meditation side? Back then I didn't. But I learned what meditation is, and it's just the quieting of the mind. It doesn't take, there's the part that people don't understand about meditation. Meditation isn't something that, I meditate for an hour, I meditate for 2 hours, I meditated for 6 hours. It's just like anything else in life. It's not the length of time, it's not the cost of it that's really important. It's the quality.
Right.
It's the quality of time that you spend. Because when it comes down to it, and we were talking about this even before we got on the show, or on air, was how you can just be working or doing something, and your life at the moment becomes a prayer or a thought of something that you need to accomplish, whatever it ends up being. And you're talking about a relationship with Creator, and it's just like you're saying, I have a relationship with my Father, which means I can talk to him at any given time of the day. I don't have to always get on my knees. I don't have to sit down in a church or a synagogue or a place of worship or all those kinds of things to have that communication with Creator.
Right. Well, you don't have to with your earthly father, so why would you, that's like I said, if I love my kids the way I feel I do, I'm not going to do something that's going to be evil to them, or going to make them so afraid to me that they can't come and talk to me. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it was sometimes. I'd be afraid, I can't pray today because I did something that I really shouldn't have yesterday. Is he going to talk to me today? Is he going to be there? Is he going to turn his back to me? Or the big one, have I done something to blaspheme God? Yeah. That was one that scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, I didn't go through that one, but yeah, I understand what you're talking about. It's like, did I do something wrong? And it's like, no, I always made it, I actually came down to a point where I had to understand that, if he created us, then he understands us, and he understands us better than we understand ourselves.
Exactly.
So we just take it from there. There's something else I want to ask, but I guess we'll get to it later. So go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I guess in some of the things that I've gone through in my life, make you wonder, well, why did I go through this? Or, why did that person hit me? And they were supposed to love me because I've been physically abused and stuff by husbands. And, it's like, well, how can God allow that if he loves me so much? Then again, there's some things that you have to go through for your path, and that's the only way that I can think about that. Some things that I went through, I didn't go crazy over. There's people that are in mental institutes or committed suicide and stuff like that because of some of the things that I've been through. But he gave me the strength to be able to endure it and actually talk about it, and has, hopefully helped other people that have gone through some of the same things.
Speaking of that, I remember what I wanted to ask you here. It's on, because what you're talking about, and this has been a conversation with others recently, is people, let me put it this way. Did you ever see the movie Powder?
Yes.
Yes. Do you remember in the latter part of the movie where Powder is saying people always view themselves as being disconnected. It's just, I am out here and I'm all by myself. I'm not connected to anyone or anything. But we are all connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I believe that. I don't think I used to believe it like I do now. It was we're all brothers and sisters under God.
Yeah.
That God, I love that God.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to say it that way too to make it really sound spiritual, don't you?
Yeah, I got to put the emphasis in there.
But yeah,
if you really want to buy this now, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the things that we go through, the good, bad, and the ugly, we have to go through it. It's part of our path, and it might not make sense at the time, and sometimes it may never make sense. But a lot of things I've gone through, it's slowly dawning on me, oh, that's why that happened. Oh, okay, I understand this now,
Uh-huh. That's what we call living in the now.
Yep.
Okay. All right, let's take a little break here, and we'll be right back with our guest today, Kim Parrish, also known as Chakra Kahn and Perry. So we'll be right back. Hold on.
I love what Maya Angelou had to say about the power of the spoken word. She said, I quote, "Words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning," end quote. And that is the reason I made the decision to put my words into an audiobook. So please check out my spoken words in my new audiobook, Your Life, Your Way, the 10 must-have goals to improve your life. It's now available. You can either go to my website at www.coachingbyria.com and purchase it there. You can also download the book from iTunes by going to the link I provided in the show page, or simply go to iTunes stores and put my name in the search, Coach Ria Wilkie, and you will be able to download the audiobook from there. And I do thank you all for doing so. And if you like to write a review, please do so. And I'm always grateful to be in service. Thank you.
Hi, this is K. William Spencer of Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Join us every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern on Freedom Talk Radio for enlightening, humorous, and intriguing conversations that I have with my co-host and or our guest, all to help you look at life and your choices differently. For more information, go to ytyrradio.tk, or if you prefer, ytyrradio.wordpress.com.
Join us, the PerryNoid 01 and friends in the Mantra Cave on blogtalkradio.com/Chakra Kahn. Get a one-of-a-kind comedic reading or mantra from Mr. Perry. Have your snacks ready early and set your alarm for Friday night at 11 p.m. Central and prepare yourself for 30 minutes of fun. Call in early and beat the rush at 347-637-1932. All readings for entertainment only.
Welcome back. Thank you for being part of the show. As we said, today is my guest is Kim Parrish, better known in some circles as Chakra Kahn or even Perry. We were just talking about how she and I were just having conversations, not so much of an interview today, but we're just talking about her life and how she went from going from a fearful way of looking at life through religion to a life where now she is happy and free and has a better relationship with our Creator. And we got off into a lot of stuff. And the thing that you were talking about before the break, a little bit before the break actually, was you were talking about abuse and where it came from, but you didn't really get into that so much. So would you mind elaborating on that?
No problem. Well, as a child, I was sexually abused, by a couple of different people. And when I got older and was married, I was abused by my first husband. I'm on my third marriage. Sorry, sad to say, but that's sad, hard truth. My first husband was abusive, and my second husband was abusive. And, not second husband, but a relationship. Yeah. And, I just wondered, how could God bring this man into my life? Because the day I met my first husband, I was getting ready to go to church. Yeah. I should have gone to church. But even through all that, I was blessed with a beautiful daughter out of that relationship. So the good came with the bad.
Yeah.
And another relationship, same thing. I was abused by that one. And I made the mistake of telling him I was abused by the first husband, and that physical abuse was a hard thing to get past, but mental abuse was sometimes harder because the bruises fade and go away and stuff like that. So he took that as I would rather him beat me than mentally abuse me.
Oh, please.
Yeah. So you can pretty much tell where that one, that's why that's X, kick to the curb.
Yeah.
But, even in that, I was blessed with another daughter out of that one, had her on my birthday.
Mm.
And, yeah, her birthday's coming up next week, matter of fact. So, she was the blessing out of that. But, another good with the bad. This was a man that we had awesome prayer together. Our spiritual life was just amazing. And, he'd turn around and we'd have prayer and he might beat me 5 minutes later, and it was just like, God, what's going on here? Something wrong with this picture. But even in that, I think I learned that if I can take that kind of abuse from somebody that's supposed to love me, then I could pretty much take it from anybody. So anything that anybody else can throw at me is really nothing.
Mm. So you went through a lot, and it brought you to where you are now. How did that actually work with you? Would you mind elaborating a little bit more on that?
What do you mean, how did it work?
Well, you went from, we won't go through the childhood abuse, but the adult abuse, the physical and the verbal, emotional abuse. How did you actually transition out of that?
A lot of prayer is about all I can say. And, it's one of those things that sometimes, you'll think back, something might happen that will bring a memory back, but it's a memory. It's not going to kill me. If it didn't kill me then, it can't kill me now. Mm-hmm. So I just put it in that perspective, in that in the long run, something that I've gone through, I might meet a woman that's being abused and doesn't realize that there's something better than sitting there being a punching bag for somebody that has their own issues.
Yeah.
And it's kind of worked out that way. I don't go around and tell everybody my story, but you get a kind of a leading, I guess you call it.
Yeah.
Where you know when to talk to somebody and when to keep your mouth shut, and how far to go with it.
Yeah. Exactly. Actually, what I'm looking for in this is, and it may be more of a general question than anything else, but you obviously transitioned from being the victim to being a strong individual that still knows how to laugh, to talk. It still has a great, big, warm, loving heart, and still can bring a smile to people's faces and whatnot. So I guess what I'm looking for at this point is, because I do this in my own life, is when something comes up, it's okay, why was I in that predicament, and how do I deal with that? Okay, give you for instance, or an example. We always say for instance, but okay. There was something that was going through my mind. I wrote this in my blog on the website, and it was talking about how I was looking at things in the future, and I was hoping that let's put it this way, I was looking at it as I was concerned about something. And that concern is what I was telling me I was experiencing is concern. Actually, when I stopped to think of it sometime later, I found I had to admit it to myself that it was fear-based. I was afraid of something that I had or had not done in the past, recent past. There was nothing really bad. It was just how do I move forward past this point that I'm looking at in the future. And thought I was being concerned about how I'm going to continue past that point in the future. And I actually ended up going, that's fear. I'm afraid that I may not get past that point the way that I would like to get past it. And I actually just stopped and I went, no, I'm bringing the future into my present, and I'm not able to live my present right now, if you understand what I mean by that. I'm not living my life right now because I'm too concerned about what's in the future. Concerned meaning fearful of what could happen in the future. So all I did was just say, look, I sent up in my prayer, my meditation, and just went, look, this is what I need to do. I need to get past it, and I'm not going to worry about the details. This is the way that I deal with things, is just because we'll tell you, many people in the same boat that we're in, will all tell you, just say what you need. Don't worry about the details of how it happens.
Right.
Okay, as many of us say, let the universe work out the details. You just tell the universe what you want.
Right.
And either it will happen the way you want it to, or it usually will happen sometimes even much better than what you really wanted, and you just sit back and just go, that's where I'm talking about living life as a miracle. And just going, wow,
yeah,
that was cool. I didn't expect that, but I still got what I wanted, just not in the way that I was expecting it.
Right.
So that's basically what I'm just talking about, is how did you transition? That was the way I did it, but how did you do it?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think I've kind of always been that way. You know, no matter what I've gone through, I figured there had to be something better. And, you know, once I got to the, I guess I'd say the born-again phase of my life, that, you know, I became so worried about everything sending me to hell or being wrong or anything like that, that I had to get out of that, you know. So when I went over to the spiritual section in Pal Talk and started meeting people that were like, oh, life is great, you know, and we don't have this and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I started opening my ears up and started listening a little bit more. So, well, maybe there's a little more to this than meets the eye, you know, that you can live a life that's pleasing to your Creator and not have to worry about every little thing that you do at the same time.
Mm-hmm. There's two things that he just made me think about, and since I didn't write down the last one, I'll bring with that one first. You said you studied a lot with Judaism and whatnot, so have you ever heard the expression that comes from the Talmud that says that in the end of your life, you will be held accountable for all the things that you could have enjoyed within the restraints of, you know, harm no one, basically sounding like a Wiccan, but, you know, not harming anyone physically, mentally, or spiritually. And, you know, within those simple realms, you will be held accountable for those times that you could have enjoyed your life, but chose not to. Have you ever heard that one?
I never heard that one, but boy, I sure wish I had.
Well, you just heard it. This comes from the Talmud. And you have said this quite often so far, so let me ask you a question. It's not to put you on the spot, but a discussion. You're saying again, or often, born again. What does born again mean to you?
Well, now I was raised in the Salvation Army Church. You know, we'd go out and bang the drums on Sunday night on the corner and everything else.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, they would talk about Jesus, but it wasn't like you go to I had to say born-again church, because that's where, you know, you have to testify and Jesus crucified and that's your Savior and God and all this other stuff, you know. And that lifestyle made me more aware of sin and anything that I possibly ever did wrong, thought wrong, or anything else. So that put me more in fear than anything ever did.
Mm-hmm. So what does born again mean to you, though?
Now, to me, born again means refinding my Creator.
Okay. What I'm getting at here is that I'm learning, or have learned, and I saw something just recently, and I think it was off of YouTube or something like that, and it had nothing to do with the question, but I was watching a child, and you don't need YouTube to do it, but see, my kids are adults as well. But you think about a child and how a child plays and how a child lives their life. And even if you want to take a look at this from a different perspective, even not from just children, but take a look at it from your pet if you have a pet. A cat, a dog, a bird, or whatever the case may be. Each one of these beings, whether it be a baby child or a little toddler or a 5-year-old or whatever, every last one of them lives right now. Their concept of the future doesn't exist, especially in animals. But with humans, we start learning about the future, we start planning the future, and that's something that actually starts working with us, say, roughly around the age of 6 years old. And that's where we lose the ability to a certain degree about living now. Because everything that we're taught in life, now this is just my opinion, this is the way that I see it, is that we're taught to think about tomorrow. And as you were talking about earlier, that fear-based thing of, you can't do this, you can't do that, and if you don't do that, you're going to go to hell. And okay, here's the fear coming in.
Right.
Okay, we're taught fear. Unfortunately. And that's where I'm kind of getting at it from that point. So without talking about it too much, where do you think how that applies to you in your life?
I still get afraid. Every now and then that old fear, because it's been so ingrained into me that sometimes it is hard to get away from and not worry about. But then again, I say, no, I'm not going to worry about that. My Creator made me for a certain reason, and He knows why I do the crazy stuff that I do, right, wrong, or indifferent. And hopefully He's more understanding than that book says that He is.
So are you seeing life as a child nowadays?
Yeah.
In other words, with the innocence and the awe of everything coming up as living your life as a miracle, per se?
I think I always pretty much did, even though I had that fear. I always, because I've always been the way I am now, besides the fear base and all that. But as far as personality and stuff, I've always been this way. So I can't say my personality has really changed. It's just my thought and worrying about what's going to happen if I don't do this, and what happens if I'm not doing this exactly the way I should be, and I've gotten to the place where, you know what, I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And if I'm not, then my Creator will put my feet back on that path and get me headed back in the right direction.
Indeed. So, before I go asking another question about Perry, is there anything else that you'd like to share on that subject?
Don't worry about what's going to happen to you after you pass away, because you can't change it anyway. Live for the moment. Live for right now.
I hear you, and I'm chuckling for those people who actually heard my shows in the past. I chuckle a lot when somebody says something that resonates within me. In other words, I'm hearing it, and it has that ring of truth in it, and I'm agreeing with her 100%. But I'm thinking about it as, what's his name? Albert Einstein has said it in one of his quotes, and you know me, I don't really do a lot of quotes. I actually paraphrase them because I make them part of my life. But he says something along the lines of, if we are a people that lives our lives in the anticipation of an afterlife only, then we are a sorry lot indeed.
Yeah.
You have life now. It's not a dress rehearsal for some other afterlife. It's you have life now. Live it. Indeed. So, now, I want to ask Chakra Kahn a question about Perry. Because if you go to Blog Talk Radio and see Chakra Kahn's site, you're going to see a picture of Perry and Chakra Kahn. And do you remember how I responded when I saw those pictures?
Yeah.
I'm going, okay, I recognize you in the picture on the right. Who's the one on the left? She goes, that's me. And I'm going, no. Okay, no, really, who's the person on the left? No, that's me. Because Perry has a very short beard. He has sunglasses on and a cap, and got a nice smile on his face. And I'm looking at him and going, that is one heck of a nice beard. I'm actually jealous about it. Tell him about the beard.
Well, I can't give up the secret to my beard. That'd take away the illusion.
Well, okay, fine, then we'll go there.
Let's just say it smells really nice.
Yeah, because when I was looking, for those who haven't seen the picture yet, I'm looking at her picture and I'm just kind of going, you know, that is one heck of a nice beard, man. Shoot, I'm actually jealous of that beard.
So is my husband. Don't feel bad.
You know, I'm just like, man, this got a nice trim, a nice edge on it. The whole bit is just like, wow, that's you? Yeah.
And it's so easy to shave. No razor stubble or anything.
Yeah, a little bit of soap and water and it's gone. You might cry that the coffee grounds went and you didn't get to drink it, but okay, whatever.
That was the last cup in the house, honey.
Exactly. So, at any rate, tell us a little bit more about Perry.
Well,
And see, matter of fact, while we're at it, since Perry's already back there, hi Perry. Perry, tell us a little bit about your side of your spiritual life as well, if you don't mind.
Well, I have to say it runs pretty much the same as Chakra's. Matter of fact, it's exactly like hers.
Should have known better to ask that question. Okay.
Well,
So,
I like to pray. Okay, I do pray. We'll just leave it at that.
okay, that'll work. So, anyway, tell us a little bit more about the show, about your radio show.
well, it's Friday nights on Blog Talk, as you said, and we get together and pal talk and everything else, and have people call into the show, and Perry does fake psychic readings.
Fake psychic reading.
Yes, fake, because Perry is not a psychic. Neither am I. And we will admit that in a heartbeat. So Perry does readings on people, and you know, mostly they turn out to be past life readings or crazy stuff. You know, or if he does a reading on somebody, it'll be like,
You have kids?
Yeah.
How many children do you have?
I have two.
I take it one of them is either a boy or a girl.
Yes.
All right, yeah, Spirit telling me that, yeah, one of them is a boy and maybe one a girl.
No, both of them are the same sex.
Okay, well, I wasn't sure about that actual message. You know, sometimes it does get kind of tangled up there in the atmosphere. Yeah, but, yeah. Okay, I sense two of them is boys. Is that
Hello?
correct?
No.
Yeah, got that. Oh, come on, Spirit. Now, I sense two of them is girls. Is that correct?
Oh, that's correct.
All right, yeah, I thank you, Spirit.
so when you hear him, it's pretty obvious. Perry is not a psychic. Perry.
Bad part about it is I've known some psychics that would actually sound like that kind of
So have I.
voice.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of go on those fishing expeditions.
You got a 50-50 chance of getting it correct, so see how long it takes you to figure it out. Oh, yeah. So,
But Perry will also give you a mantra to go along with the reading.
oh, we'll go right ahead. You got about another 9 minutes to go, so go ahead. Tell us about it.
Let's see what can...
Well, let's see, Mr. William, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
I don't have my real meditation balls and stuff with me, but let me get a mantra going here. Oh. All right, yeah, I think I got it. Let's see, you have two girls?
Uh-huh.
I'm sensing their name ain't Kitten Cat. Is that correct?
That's correct. No, there's not.
Where's the that K, that K, that might be coming in your name. Is there a K in your name?
Yeah, there is.
Okay, that where that K is coming in at. All right. Let's see. Spencer, I'm sensing that sometime way back that you was related to the Spencers.
Yeah.
And that might be in that royal line there, that Lady Diana. Yeah, I think she might even be one of your guys and may come in and help you out every now and then. Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see, let's see, Spencer, I think that, your mantra might be called, we might have to sit and meditate on that mantra for you a little bit.
Okay.
But is there anything that you would like to ask me today?
I had something and it just went out of my mind. Let me see if I can get it back here for you.
That happens to me too.
Okay. Well, let's see. You picking up anything from cousin Lady Diana?
No, not today.
She's kind of resting. Huh?
Yeah, I think she got other things to do right now.
Yeah, probably kind of hanging around with her granddaughter.
Yeah.
Or was it grandson? I'm sorry, grandson.
Catch on that baby. So.
Yeah, no time for me today, huh?
No, I don't think so. But I do have a mantra for you. All right.
Okay.
Okay, here it is. It's Oprah and Gail were Stedman.
What?
Now, if you say that mantra 2 or 3 times a day during your meditations, it might open up some more answers for you. That Spencer connection might come in and help you out and teach you a few things. Open up some awareness on that situation. Meditate on that. It'll activate that Kundalini. It'll rise and activate your chi.
Okay. It's going to activate my chi, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you will attain bliss and nirvana.
Yeah, even more so than what I've already got, huh?
Yeah, it's an amazing thing.
Alrighty then. Well, Perry, thank you very much for the mantra, and thank you for the reading.
You're very welcome. I hope that does some help for you.
Yeah, I think it'll do just fine. Okay. Chakra, you back?
I'm here.
Okay. Or should I just go for Kim this time?
Oh, you're kind of taking a chance on any of us.
Oh, you got me laughing so much I am wheezing over here. This is good. I definitely have to come and hear that show, so we're going to get that show up again before we end, but we have a few more minutes here. Anything else that you were thinking about that you'd like to share with us before we go? We have about another 4 minutes to go.
Just keep on trying, like I said, I'm on my 3rd marriage, 3rd time. It's a charm. We're coming up on 20 years next month.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Cool.
And he's been great. Poor man. Sometimes he'd never know if he was going to come home to an old lady or a man. Or I might have a costume on, dressed like an old lady, just for no reason. Just got a wild hair one day and walked out in the neighborhood dressed like an old lady. Had somebody telling my daughter, "Hey, your grandmother is down here." She goes, "No, I'm pretty sure she's not." Yeah, she's down there. Look, she's on the sidewalk. My daughter looks down and goes, "No, that's my mom."
Keeps everybody in the neighborhood looking too, huh?
So it takes a very patient person to Some people might rush her to the institute, Yeah, it used to be the name of my old chat room on Pal Talk. It was Mosley Memorial Mental Institute.
Variety being the spice of life. Always got to have fun, yes. Beats the heck out of just coming back home to, hi, I'm home. Yeah, okay, dinner's on the table. I'm watching TV.
Yeah. And the wrapping yourself in saran wrap gets old.
Yeah, peel it off.
Seen it once, you've seen it twice,
Yeah, now people, do you understand why we've kept in contact for all these years? It's always fun with Chakra. I've always called her Chakra, so anyway, but it's always fun with Kim. So, anyway, with that, I think we're going to come to the end of our show for today, or at least for now. This is a new program. We're actually starting a new way of doing things, so anyway, for now. Thank you very much, Kim, for being here. Thanks for being the friend that you've always been throughout all these years. And also thank you, Perry, for being here and being a part of our show as well.
Well, thank you. We enjoyed being here, and thank you for having us.
Thank you, William. I appreciate the interview, and I enjoyed myself.
I definitely enjoyed having you here. We'll have you back on again sometime in the future, so we'll just stay in contact, and we'll just see how it goes. And for everyone else, thank you for being part of this show, and we'll see you around next time. Be well. Please stay tuned for the second hour of our show, which is live, which comes up right after these messages. Stay tuned. Ladies, have you or someone you know been stood up on your wedding day or just before that special day? How did you feel that day, or afterward? Here is one heart-rending book about one woman's bright and wonderful day and future turned dark and ugly and how she got through it. Happily Never After by Mona is the book for those that have had the experience of heartbreak at the altar or just before being left with a bouquet, tears, and embarrassment. Happily Never After by Mona, even for men to know the long-term pain you may cause and may experience later in life. Where to buy Happily Ever After can be found at happilyneveraafter.info. That's happilyneveraafter.info. Hi, this is K. William Spencer, the host of Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. I've just dropped by to tell you about the new format starting in August 2013. In August, the show's format is changing to a more spiritually based program. I have 4 co-hosts that, with me, will present discussions and conversations from many different perspectives. We're also opening to the public, in a limited manner, the ability to ask questions via email. Join me and my co-host, Pat Kammer, Troy Matheson, Amanda Stedman, and Mona Wellington, and our guest, for what I'm sure will be an enlightening and intriguing hour of spiritual and personal growth. For more information, visit us at ytyrradio.wordpress.com or ytyrradio.tk. Stay informed about the latest Freedom Talk Radio Network news at freedomtalkradio.co.uk. That's freedomtalkradio.co.uk. Welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio with your host, K. William Spencer, and friends. This program is here to help all of us understand our journey in and through life by means of straightforward conversations, discussions, guest interviews, and listener emails. For more information, visit our site at ytyrradio.tk. Now, here's your host. Hello, and welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. I hope you enjoyed the first hour that we had with Kim Parrish. The second hour, we're waiting for, actually, my co-host to sign in. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, and we're going to open up the phone lines later on in this section of the show, probably after the commercial breaks at the bottom of the hour. So if you want to call in, you're in Canada and U.S., you can call in at 347-677-0628. 0812. That's 347-677-0812. Or if you're calling international, you can call with 001 or click on the Skype button at the top of the screen. The Skype calls will put you straight into us. Just follow the instructions and you'll get in to us. So if you'd like to also send in email, you can do that to info@YTYR Radio. That's all one word. YTYRradio.tk. That's the email address. You will be asked to confirm that you are not a robot, so check your junk mail if you don't get that in your regular email box. At any rate, this afternoon's show, as soon as Pat Kammer signs in, we hope to have a discussion on many different things, but we have two topics in particular that we would like to talk about, and, well, we'll see how that goes. Well, let's see. Until Pat signs in, excuse me, let's have a little thought here, because there's a topic that I do want to talk about, and the thought that I have in mind is about people who have asked me to do certain projects on my show. Now, the show has changed to being a spiritually based program, and the reason why it has changed that way, and maybe I didn't state this even on the website clearly enough, which I think I'll make it the change, is that well, there are people who want me to address certain topics that are dear to them, and honestly, I would say that they do deserve some mention and probably some discussion. However, doing that on this show is not what it's about, and I'll tell you the reason why I'm doing that, and we can discuss that a little bit more when Pat signs in. Is that on this show, my ideas here are that there are many symptoms in societies that we all see. That is from murder, thievery, to corruption, to all sorts of different things. You just can name it, and it's out there. Living your life licentiously, all these things, and we can go through and we'll each find something that we really dislike. From corrupt politicians to control freaks in corporations, and the vices and the avarice that goes on. And the way that I look at this is this. When we look at life and we find that we have moved away from a connection with our source of life, our Creator, we become more base in mind. Base meaning we look at life as being everything on the physical. And with the physical side of life, what I end up doing is... hold on a second, let me see if I can pull in Pat. Ooh.
Hi, I can hear you.
Okay, I think you're on the air with me.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
It's okay, I figured you were having a little problem getting there, so...
Yep.
Anyhow, I was just getting into the reasons why I particularly don't want to get into doing the, as we spoke about before, pulling in on different individual topics. And I only say that because, as I was getting into it, is that when we take a look at life and see that we are pulling away from our Creator, we tend to go to the base. We tend to go at base, meaning the primitive side of life. Okay? Everything's about control and about pleasures and pain and all those things that are mixed in, no matter how you label it. We tend to go that direction. And I've said this even on other shows that I've done, is that there is good, and then there is the absence of good. Mostly in our societies we say good and evil. Well, evil is the absence of good, just like darkness is the absence of light. Cold is the absence of heat, because, be honest, when we measure heat, when we measure temperature, we measure heat. We don't measure cold, because cold is where we know that absolute zero on the Kelvin scale is 200 and some odd degrees below zero. There is no atomic movement there, so we measure heat. We can't measure past no atomic movement. So I tend to, and I want to keep, is my intention anyway, it doesn't mean that I can't change, but my intention is to keep the show on the source of the problems that we see, and the source of how do we get out of these issues and problems that we see on a daily basis.
Yeah, we talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah. So now I've kind of explained my side of the point of view, so if you don't mind.
Well, what do you want to know?
That's why I don't like talking about this.
With our world and what we can do about it? Is that what you want to know?
Yeah, well, let's hear your point of view on that. I mean, everybody's heard my point of view, so what is your point of view on that?
Well, I think what you were trying to say, and I'm going to boil it down into my simple way of putting things, is the world is messed up, and it's been messed up for a long time. We've been thinking in this third dimension thought system, and it's been like that forever. And we're just in a big shift now of thinking differently, and some people just aren't grasping that, that there is other dimensions, if you will, more than what we see, feel, and touch. And I feel the question is, what's wrong with our world is we all think we're in competition with one another. The root of the problem is competition. They need to be better than the other. It's separation from your source, which is spirit, God, however you want to call the greater energy than what we can feel, touch, and see in this world. It's the universe, whatever you want to call it. That's how I see it. And that if we watched nature, for instance, we would see there isn't an awful lot of competition. I was watching a documentary just a little while ago, and the filmmaker and director Tom Shadyac, I think his name is Shadyac, he became quite famous because he did these great films with Jim Carrey, and he becomes very affluent, very rich, very great lifestyle, had many cars, huge houses all over the place, and just lived really high. And one day after he bought one of his last houses, he's standing in the hallway where the chandeliers are hanging and the spiral staircase and marble everywhere, and he suddenly realized he wasn't any happier. And so he had an awakening. What the heck is all this about anyway? Just trying to get better than another person and get more and more, accumulate more and more stuff. And he had an awakening, if you will, just in that minute. And he decided, because he was the filmmaker that he was, that he would do a documentary on his findings of what's wrong with our world and what can we do about it. And so he went around all over the world, and he talked to scientists and people who are spiritual leaders. And some of them were, well, one I can remember is Dean Radin, which he's a scientist, and David Suzuki, of course, he's a well-known man, and even the Dalai Lama, and his own father, who gave a great deal of his wealth to St. Jude's Hospital, where they gave free cancer treatments to children. And he suddenly realized that there was more than just accumulating stuff and getting more and more wealth, because you can only drive one car at a time. You can only be in a small space at a time. You can't be in, he had 7,000 square feet in his house. What is he going to do with it all? And so one of the things that people find that they have to do when they feel separate is to get better than another, to have more than another. So they would accumulate more and more things in order to prove their wealth or their worthiness, if you will, to be in this world. Then you have these great gulfs between the haves and the have-nots. And there has to be something different happen in our world for this to cease happening, because there's no need for it. There's enough of everything for everyone. So he began to observe nature. And one of the things he was studying was how herds move towards a watering hole. One would feel the need for water, and he would point his nose in the direction of the watering hole. And there would be a large herd, and one other part of the herd would see and feel the same feeling and would point his nose in the direction of the watering hole, until 51% of the herd were pointing their nose in the direction of the watering hole, and then they moved as one total unit toward the watering hole. It was like a consensus, a way of being one, if you will. And you see that in the schools of fish. You see it in the birds that would fly in flocks when they would change direction on a dime. And where did that come from? How do they know? Who's the leader? It's by consensus. And I thought that was pretty eye-opening and amazing when I observed that myself, and I'm sure you have too, where this happens.
Oh, yeah.
So how do we get it right is by consensus, that not one part of the herd is better than the other. One fish is not better than the other, and one bird is not better than the other. They are working in complete cooperation with one another. It's love, if you will. It's love in action, not the love that we think of, but spiritual love, nature love. And so I believe that people have to stop this insanity of thinking they're better than another, and realize that there's a new gospel called oneness, that we're all one, we're a part of everything, and everything is a part of us. And when we get that, we stop trying to be special than another, we stop being in competition, and if anything, we be in competition with ourselves to be a better person than we were yesterday, to be more loving today than we were yesterday. So that's what I'm seeing is wrong with our world. And what we have gotten in the third dimension is the way to get right with the world is to fight, to get warring against one another. Well, how has that worked? Not very well. And so this is my thinking on it, that we need to get more love in the scene, pour love on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my long-winded answer.
That's okay. We have about another 45 minutes to go, so you can be long-winded as you want.
Okay.
Actually, to continue on with this thought, let me ask you to come from another point of view, because those of you who don't know Pat, or maybe haven't read her blogs that are in the webpage and all that, Pat also has she has a therapy, which I want to let her introduce. She has a different name for it, so I don't want to give away what it is. But in that particular therapy, how do you see that relating to other people in their lives?
Are you talking about my trance therapy?
That's it.
Okay. Well, what trance therapy does is just put you in a relaxed state. People get really bent out of shape when they hear the word hypnosis, but actually people are hypnotized, if you will, or in trance many times a day, especially if they watch television or if they're on their computer, because their mind is taken off the moment, the reality that they're in, and it's placed on another space and another time. And so what we do in trance therapy is to get people very relaxed, and we can take them back into the womb, especially if they're dealing with something like insecurity of themselves, unworthiness, shyness, past abuses. A lot of the soldiers that come back from war with this what do they call it, POSTD or whatever, post-traumatic syndrome. We can get rid of a lot of that, and it doesn't take very long. It doesn't have to take 10 years.
Pat, let me stop you for a quickie second there, just for a quick one. George Carlin, one of my favorite comedians, he had a way of saying, he says, in World War II, we had this condition called shell shock.
Yeah.
2 words, 2 syllables. Then we have gone up now to 8 syllables and everything else. So just stick with shell shock.
That sounds better. Yeah. I get these initials all mixed up.
Yeah, shell shock.
Okay, shell shock. Well, we can take, one of the things we often do in hypnosis or in trance is take the person back right into the womb of the mother, because oftentimes that's where it all starts. If mommy is afraid and they're misinterpreting it, and a little child, a little baby before it's born can feel and sense what the mother's about and what is happening. Maybe not have a name for it, but it can tell if it's in fear. It's fear and not feeling loved, and then it's not feeling comfortable for them. So we can take the person right into the womb of the mother, and a lot of the time, if mother is afraid and it's interpreted as a fear thing, then and mommy doesn't love me, then I'm not very lovable is the thing they come out with. And so a lot of people's self-esteem or lack of it comes from right in that space. And what we do, we use what I call it reframing, and we can use what we call EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. A lot of people are familiar with that now. And we can resolve that because the subconscious mind has that locked in there. We can change how the subconscious mind looks at themselves. And so that becomes resolved. And it's quite miraculous. And the change in the people after they finish with the sessions, because we take them through different parts of their life, right through school into adulthood. And we resolve it with these 2 tools that I use. And then we take them into what we call Gestalt, which is a room where they have forgiveness, a forgiveness type therapy, because nothing is resolved unless there's total forgiveness. And if that isn't done, then it's just like another rock in your shoe, if you will. It creates a whole another problem. So that needs to be resolved, any forgiveness, because I feel that most of illnesses come from that place right there, lack of forgiveness. And then we take them into what I call the domed room, where they find out who they really are, not all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas that they've held over their own head, and they resolve them, and get a new vision of themselves and what they can be in their world to go forward in the future. And like I say, it's like a miraculous state of being when they come out of, and we bring them back to this moment in this time. And there are a lot of tears in between where they release an awful lot of stuff. And it's just a beautiful thing. So I've been teaching that to a group of people and certifying different people. And once that's done, I'm not going to do any more. I'm not going to saturate people with that. But that's what I'm doing. And I love it.
Yeah. Now, I don't do anything along what you're talking about, but the one example that I can come up with as a holistic therapist, and there's been more than one, but this is the one that I always use, is that a few years ago, actually, only about 3 or 4 years ago, I had a patient who came in who's about 40 years old, about 5'6", 5'7", and very slim, one of what we would call wiry, very strong, but not what you would say muscular. And he came in with his mother, who was in her late 60s, and he looked normal, she looked normal, she was normal, except for him, who looked like he was about 9 months pregnant. In other words, very slim body, but just a very distended abdomen. And he was saying that he couldn't urinate. His short story is he went to see 4 doctors, one of which was a specialist, and none of them could help him. And so he ended up coming to me. And he asked if I could help him. So I said, well, fine, I'll give it a try. So I put him up on the massage table, and I started doing auricular therapy, which is the equivalent of doing reflexology on the feet, but you do it on certain parts of the earlobe. It's easier, and it doesn't take as much effort to do it that way, and it works just as good, if not better, actually, sometimes. So I'm working away, and when I'm hitting some of these pressure points, I noticed that he would always literally jump, and ow, and it didn't matter which language it is, ow is ow, so don't wonder if there's a Spanish version of ow, and it's just ow, but he's going ow. And I started writing notes as I'm doing this, and when I was finished with the therapy, I took him into my office, and then I told him that the therapy will probably help somewhat, but I wanted to ask him some questions. So I asked him the questions that I had written down, and basically I just asked him, in short, was, are you experiencing stress in your life? And you should have seen his face just go, yes, I am concerned about my parents, and I'm concerned about work, and how I'm going to pay this, and he just went down a whole list of things. And I listened to him, and I'm pretty sure you're sitting over there, Pat, just kind of nodding your head, kind of going, But he's just listing all of these things that were stress given. Now, I also asked him, I said, when do you, because I couldn't believe this was just all his bladder. So I asked him, I said, are you moving your bowels on a daily basis? And he's like, yeah, sometimes twice a day. And my thought, even as a parent, is even children, when they move their bowels, they urinate. How is it possible that he could move his bowels, but he couldn't urinate? It's just, I never experienced that before. So I told him what to do. I said, go home and relax. And I gave him a bunch of things to do, which was just relax him. And I told him how to think. Didn't worry about the negatives. I told him what to do. Go home, relax. Don't think about the past. Don't think about the future. Just enjoy the present. Kick off your shoes. Dig your toes into the carpet or a rug, or just throw a towel on the floor and just let your toes just feel the comfort of the terry cloth between your toes. Enjoy it. Sit back in your favorite chair, your sofa, doesn't matter, and just relax to some calming music, or if you want to watch TV, anything but the news, anything that will bring stress. Don't think about anything else. Just laugh, enjoy the night, the afternoon, the evening, and relax. Tomorrow morning you can start planning for the future, for that day or maybe the couple of days in the future, but don't become preoccupied with it. And just relax. Do what you can do at any given moment and then stop. Are you still there? Pat? Uh-oh. Hello? No, I don't know if I'm still on the air, but I guess I'm still here. Let's double check. Please stay tuned. We're suffering technical difficulties, but we'll be right back.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now.
Hello, I hope I'm back online. As I always say down here in Mexico, when we lose something, I lost internet connection, is Bienvenido a Mexico, which is in English, welcome to Mexico. So anyway, let's see if we can get Pat Kammer back online with us. And let's see.
Hi there.
Hi, Pat. Okay, sorry about that. I hope you heard what I just said.
Nope.
Okay. I hope we're back on the air. Let's double check here. We'll take phone calls as soon as we come back. You can call in at 347-677-0812 in the U.S. and Canada. If you're outside of that area, just add 001 before you call 347-677-0812, or you can click on the Skype button and come in and talk with us from there. Sorry about the problem. This was something that was out of my control. But then again, here in Mexico, you can lose electricity for the same amount of time. So luckily we didn't lose the electricity. It was just the internet. So we'll be right back after these commercials.
Join us The PerryNoid01 and friends in the Mantra Cave on
Okay.
blogtalkradio.com/Chakra Kahn. Get a one-of-a-kind comedic reading or mantra from Mr. Perry. Have your snacks ready early and set your alarm for Friday night at 11 p.m. Central and prepare yourself for 30 minutes of fun. Call in early and beat the rush at 347-637-1932. All readings for entertainment only.
Hi, this is K. William Spencer of Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Join us every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern on Freedom Talk Radio for enlightening, humorous, and intriguing conversations that I have with my co-host and or our guest, all to help you look at life and your choices differently. For more information, go to ytyrradio.tk, or if you prefer, ytyrradio.wordpress.com. Hello and welcome back to the show. Thank you for your patience. This is the problem with doing most anything on the internet, and here in Mexico, anything that has to do with electricity. So it's just one of those things that just happened.
It happens in Canada too.
Okay.
Every once in a while.
Yeah, I do this down here, and I just kind of chuckle because I just shake my head and go, "Bienvenido a Mexico," which is in English, "Welcome to Mexico." Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those hazards that.
With the flow, Kurt. Huh? It's called going with the flow.
Oh yeah, exactly. Before we were so rudely interrupted by the internet going down for a moment. The bill has been paid, so people don't worry about that part. We're good until at least next month, anyway. I was talking to Pat about this guy that came in with a very distended stomach because he couldn't urinate, and he hadn't urinated, I guess it was for a few weeks anyway. I'm not sure how many now. It was 3 years ago or 4. And the questions that I was asking him was all stress-related, and he was answering yes. And I was telling him what to do. So it's just relax, come home, don't think about what happened today and yesterday, what you have to do tomorrow and the next day and next week, next month. Come home, relax, just enjoy the moment you have. And just do it with relaxing music, a book that just relaxes you, television that relaxes you, whatever you do, relax yourself and don't think about the future and the past. Just enjoy the moment you're in. The next morning when you get up, you can start planning for what your day has to be, what you have to do, but just learn to let go of it. Once you plan it, let go of it and just make it happen. And just get into the cycle of doing things. Let go, work when you have to, stop, and relax. 2 days later, his mother calls up and she says in Spanish, I'm not going to quote what she said, but she said in English, he's in a restroom, he's urinating, and he can't stop. That 9 months of pregnancy on this guy just started disappearing.
Yeah, for sure.
So what you're saying, what you said earlier, and basically from my point of view as a holistic therapist was, yes, our mind does create a great deal of our illnesses.
Yeah, I wrote down earlier, I don't see, this must be guidance, if you will. Why do people suffer? Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, good. Why do people suffer? It's because of resistance. He was resisting being in the moment, the now moment, and creating a story about a future that hadn't even arrived yet. Worry about his parents, or worry about debts, worry about whatever, and that will make you sick faster than anything.
Oh, definitely.
So, big word, resistance. Resist what you, the moment, and how relaxed you can be if you just stop thinking. If we could only stop thinking, we'd be fine, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I find out. People are, because I took all the holistic stuff. I did reflexology, iridology, the herbs, the essential oils, the kinesiology, the whole 9 yards. I did it all.
Yeah.
And then I realized people get sick from the head down.
Yep.
They get thinking too much and worrying about what a time that's not even here, making stories around the past and around the future, and not being in the present second that they're living.
Mm-hmm.
That's what usually causes it.
Yeah. Ironically enough, I got a lot of patients that had pretty much the same results from doctors. They went to visit more than one doctor, even specialists for whatever their conditions were, and they all told me that the doctors could not help them. And I told them, I said, well, the problem with doctors, and if you know this, and I would assume the same way up in Canada as in the States and other places, is they're taught how to work on the symptoms, not to cure the problems.
That's right.
And I have a feeling this is where even the mentality of the world is let's attack the symptom. This is all we see as the symptoms. The governments are giving in to the corporations. Okay, where's the source? Nobody knows the source. We just know the symptom. Governments and corporations are in bed with each other. Okay, how do you get them out of bed with each other? I have no idea.
Yeah, follow the money, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, why are they in bed with each other? Money, power. It's only two things that these two particular entities are really interested in.
Again, it goes back to having feelings of separation and competition.
Yeah.
That's what it all goes back to.
Yeah. So it's something that even in history we talk about is that when you see corporations actually coming together that are supposed to be competitors, they're coming together for one reason. They're coming together because they have a mutual benefit to be reaped from working together. And you can apply that to anything in life.
Yep. But too often they see one person being better than the other, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my daughter's a teacher, and she's going into a new school. And she's just taken up encaustic art. And it's a kindergarten room. And so what she's decided to do, because she was having fun with this, is making the letters of the alphabet with encaustic. Encaustic is wax. And she was putting the letters in string, if you will, into this wax, so that they can have tactile as well as sight to learn the alphabet. And she was telling the principal this, and the principal says, "Oh my, the other teachers are going to feel like they're in competition with you. They're going to feel like you're trying to outdo them." Well, what is she supposed to do with that? You know, is she supposed to play little so they can be big, or what? See, it's all about competition. Mm-hmm. And all she wants to do is have fun and be of good use to the student and to help them learn. And her thought was not trying to outdo anybody else. But so, you know, there's this feeling of wanting to be just as good or better than another when you all are equal, a part of the one source.
Well, when I came down here, there's always that competition down here between people. It doesn't matter what you're doing down here in Mexico, and I suppose it's that way to a certain degree. But in the United States, it didn't seem to be as competitive as it is down here. And I used to get that, and what I would do is just take people in and go, look, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm doing it, this is why I'm doing it, and I teach them how to do it. I said, because the end result is we're supposed to be here to teach our students. I started out as an English teacher in one of the schools that are actually businesses. You know, it's I won't mention the names of the schools, but they're actually business, and the only thing they do is they teach English to whoever wants to learn. And they're throughout the country, and some of them have branched out into some of the other neighboring countries down here. But it's not just a school where you go to learn reading, writing, arithmetic, and sciences and all that kind of stuff. It's just a language school. So this is how I would do it, even when I went into teaching in the private school system, teaching just the kids where they were learning reading, writing, arithmetic, and sciences. I would tell teachers this is how I did things, and some of them took it and some of them didn't take it, but you know, I tried to eliminate that competition. You know, and
good luck trying that. I say good luck with that.
Yeah, well, that's why I don't teach in these private schools anymore.
Oddly enough, there's not a lot of allotment, if you will, or allowing for children to learn their own way.
No, there isn't.
I really could not stand English per se. Like, you had to have adverbs, verbs, and know what they all meant and use them in the right place and end your sentences right, da-da-da-da-da-da. And apparently I didn't do it right because the teacher wrote on my report card that I wasn't good at English. And so, therefore, I was always really afraid of writing. And so what ends up happening, I put off writing until I'm in my 70s because I believed a lie. I believed that I couldn't write, which wasn't true.
Yeah.
So I wonder how many people are doing that to themselves, letting somebody else tell them what they're capable of and what they can or can't do. And is that true? And they need to ask themselves. And for me, it wasn't true. And because I believed it was, nobody got the benefit of what Spirit was trying to say through me to other people.
Yeah.
And it's changed my life to start to think for myself. At one time, a long while ago, I had a vision about the little lemmings. They're like little mice, and apparently the story is, and I don't know how true it is, that they would kill themselves by going over the edge of a cliff, so to keep their population down to a normal amount. And in my vision, I saw we as people being like lemmings, following after the person or the lemming in front of us, and not any one of us knowing where we're going. We just followed without question. Until one day I looked up and I saw this hill. I'm going to go up a hill and see where everybody's going. And I went up and I saw where I could see from a high place where everybody was going to their bitter end. And I started hollering down to the crowd, "Come on up and see where you're going. Come on up here and see where." And then they look, think, "There's a nutcase for you." Mm-hmm. She's up on a hill looking, what's she doing up there? So anyway, somebody got curious enough and followed me up on the hill. And sure enough, they saw what I was seeing. And they started to beckon to the other people that were following the tails of the person in front of them. They say, "Come on up and see what we're seeing." And very few would pay any attention. Finally, after a long time, there were more people on the hill than there were following after each other, because they started to think for themselves, and they started to question what was real and what was truth, and what wasn't real. And so now I think with the shift, there's more people on the hill looking for themselves and making their own decisions, rather than believing what some quote expert has to tell them about themselves. And that's what I believe is happening in our world right now. We're just questioning everything and not really believing what we hear and see on the media, and asking, is this true?
Yes, indeed. Well, Pat and I continue our little conversation. If anyone wants to call in, I know we probably lost a few people that, they lost the show. But we're still here, but there's still a few people out there that are still listening. If you want to call in the Americas, North America, United States and Canada, you can call area code 347-677-0812. If you're on your computer, just click on the Skype button that's at the top of the show page, and you can connect with us in the next 10 minutes or less. And if you have questions, comments, you'd like to participate in the show, just give us a call. We only have a few minutes to go. Sorry we had the issue with the internet. That was on my end, but it was with the company that I get my internet service through. Anyway, as we see if anybody's going to call in, Pat, what you were just talking about with the lemmings, just for those who didn't or don't know this, there is our website, which is the short version, which is a redirect, is YTYR Radio, all one word, YTYRradio.tk, or YTYRradio.wordpress.com. There is in our website a blog, which every day, Monday through Friday, there is a new blog that is put up. And Pat's comes on Mondays, and what she was just talking about with the lemmings, that was this past Monday's post, so you can go read her blog entry there. Pat, we only do have a few minutes, and nobody's called in just yet, so is there some other thought that you had in mind to share with us?
I don't know if we should bring this up because it might be too big a subject, but there's talk about good and bad, right and wrong.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to start doing the video shorts on the website soon, so, well, we just start on this and we can go into the video short later.
Okay. So, I get asked all the time, is there evil? And of course there is. The answer is, but I always have to revisit this question all the time. Because it's really confusing, because it's a yes and no. And that's where the confusion is. Over and over again, I find myself needing to go back to the drawing board, if you will, and get it clear on this issue. Because I've lost friends over time because of the confusion surrounding the answer to this question. Often it means that they would judge me and have already chosen to believe that my answer must be bad, and they want no part of it. So that's how I lose friends. Because there is a spiritual answer. That number one, there is no death, and we are eternal, every single one of us, and we are energy, and you can't, because we're energy, we can't kill energy. We're also souls on a path, and we have this logical mind that tries to figure out everything from the third dimension, and the rights and the wrongs and the goods and the bads. That's what we call dual thinking. When you look on a thermometer, there is no mark on there that says when it gets hot or when it gets cold. It's a feeling you have, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody's feeling is different. So what's hot for you is not hot for me, and vice versa. So all we know is what makes us feel good and what makes us feel not so good. So it's a lack, like you say earlier, you said about how it's a lack of light. And we need to figure out what is blocking the light. And it's usually how we think. And how we think is creating a vibration, which is our energy again. It's what we are and who we are. When you're vibration, when you're vibrating at a very high level, a level of love, and you're thinking with the mind of God in only love and not competition and fear, then your vibration is raised, and you don't attract all the crap that you used to do. And so it's by attraction. And you attract money the same way. You attract problems the same way. It's by trust and by love in a higher source, an invisible place, an invisible source. That's a big subject, and it takes a while to explain it all, but that's in a nutshell, if you will. It's all like a spiritual mosaic, because we don't see everything. We don't really see the big picture of why things happen to people. And it usually has to do with forgiveness that people have to learn to grow as a soul. And some people say, why did really bad things happen to little children? But you're thinking from the third dimension as little children, being little children, like little babies, innocent. But they're really old souls or young souls. They're on a spiritual path, if you will. No matter what age their body is in this dimension, their soul's growth is different than what we see. Like some of the babies that are being born right now are very old souls. Mm-hmm. They even know how to play a violin at like 4 years old or something, how they become a virtuoso.
We had a little saying back in Chicago when I lived there, was one of my friends back then used to say, you can tell an old soul in a little baby every now and then, but you hold that little baby in your arms and it's got an expression on its face like, oh no, I'm here again.
Yeah, oh my God, not you again.
Yeah.
It's usually the same people that we're with that we didn't get it right the first time. I don't know how true all that is, but it sure sounds good.
Yeah. I've looked at a few babies' faces, and they kind of give you that look like, again? Jeez.
Yeah. I have to say one thing that I've learned, and that is, if you want to know more, say to yourself, I know nothing. Because if you know nothing, you can be taught everything.
Yes.
If you've got your own thinking in the way, and you're stuck there, and it's not working for you, then that's good reason why it's not. You're stuck in your own thinking of what's right and wrong, and what's good and bad, what all that stuff. But if you say, you know what, I don't know. I really don't know. Show me. And then you get to be shown,
Yes.
and you'll grow that way.
Indeed. Yeah, I find that as I'm getting very close to 60, it's only a few months, but this...
Oh, you're a baby.
Well, we won't go there. But I was telling you, I think it was earlier, probably a couple of months ago anyway, that one of the things that I noticed when I get up in the morning, especially within the last 2 months or so, is often I get up and I'm feeling like, man, I don't know anything. As much as I've learned in this lifetime, I still wake up and just feel like, duh. It's like, what have I actually learned? What is any use that I have actually, all this information I've learned, what use can I really put it to? And it's just, and I guess it's just my ego stepping out of the way and just going, I'm not that important. I have a place in life, but
you actually are important. Without you, God would be incomplete. You're like a drop in the ocean that wouldn't be there if you weren't there. Enough of us have to do that to make an ocean.
I agree with you 100%. But what I was getting at is that I'm not that important. In other words, the ego took a step off to the side and saying, you're important as an individual, you're important as a collective, not to sound like the Borg from the TV show, but as a collective. In other words, you're part of humanity, and as you're saying it, we're all part of God, yes. So there is that part of us that, we're important, but we don't go overboard with that.
Well, I think I'd see it as the little I, the big I. The little I is just where you're learning that the big I is the only thing that's important. The big I is the source of you. And that is what's really important. The other thing is the ego wants to be right, even though it's wrong, dead wrong. And, it's in competition and all the rest of it. So that's the part I think that's not needed. Yeah. And you finally step aside a little bit so that you can let your big eyes shine through.
Yeah, pardon all the microphone movements and whatnot, but I had to pull Pat into the phone call. So it means if I mute my mic, you lose hearing what Pat's saying all at the same time. So pardon me. We only have about 2 minutes to go in the show. So, Pat, any final words here before I have to sign off?
Yeah, just know that you're really, really important, that Spirit denies you nothing, that you cannot do anything without Spirit, and you need to get really, really close, especially in these times, and listen, be guided, and you're loved unconditionally. You're never judged, ever. That's my message.
Thank you. And for those who didn't know this, and I was going to say this after the commercial break, but we had a longer commercial break from my internet service than longer. Pat is the one who actually threw me the idea, which I loved, and I still love doing this with the new show and with her and 3 other people as co-host. So you get to hear, as a listener, not only my point of view, but you get to hear Pat's, you get to hear Troy's, which you'll hear next month, Amanda's, and Mona's, who you heard last week. You'll hear each one of us saying different,
90 seconds,
about the same things at the same time. And I've just been given a warning that we're about to end the show. So I do want to tell everybody about Tim and Andy's Night of Liberty show tomorrow at 7 p.m. London time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, right here on Freedom Talk Radio. And we'll see you again in the near future. And look out for the video shorts with Pat and another surprise guest. Thank you. Take care. Be well.
60 seconds.
Have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Be sure to follow our schedule, events, blog, and more at ytyrradio.tk or ytyrradio.wordpress.com.